Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip,
And I'm CJ.
and it is Wednesday in the Rev. And I'll let CJ tell you why we went on Monday if he wants. So,
For
look
those
at
who,
that, huh? See what happens when you walk around the streets of Fall River? No, I'm only kidding. Looks like you
yes,
had a slip and fall.
I had a medical emergency on Sunday, and I ended up falling and planting my face on the floor, which caused extensive bleeding, and it took several EMS personnel to resolve my issue. So the weekend flush still hasn't gone out, and we did not have a show on Monday. I'm sorry about that. I really wish I could have managed the show using my cell phone, but I couldn't. Otherwise, I would have had the show on anyways, because that's the way I am.
Well, yeah, and you're dedicated. That's good, and you're looking much better than the day you left the hospital. So that's
Thank
that's a
God.
good that's a good sign.
Yeah,
You looked pretty tough. You were in tough shape, but that's what happens. Sometimes life gets in the way. That's the thing. We've got to play everything by ear. Today we were supposed to have Nelson on to present some figures that he's come up with about um, the numbers on the debt exclusion payments, and he sent. I guess he sent you and I both copies of the presentation. It's a pretty comprehensive, uh, pretty comprehensive presentation. I'm sorry that we can't have it on today. He must be experiencing some difficulties getting into the show. So if he shows up, we'll let you know. If not, well, today is Wednesday, and I don't know if you want to say a little bit about Richard Urban.
I was just gonna mention that.
Yeah.
We've been advised by several sources that attorney Richard Urban, who is also a community activist, and I should say a veteran activist, um, a member of the VFW Post in Tiverton, and we've done his show several times. He actually had the longest running show on FRC Media, and we came in second to him. And he kept producing his show and producing shows for some time. And it was always great to see Richard, and it was always great to watch his shows because he was always on the ball with everything. So, and our guest has arrived.
Well, yeah. Well, we can keep them in the queue or put them on, whatever you want. But we're gonna finish this little train of thought because, as you said, Richard was a community activist. He did a lot for the South End. We went to numerous fundraisers he had for different things that were going on in the South End. He was also extremely active with the veterans, and he ran a lot of things like the uh, Pulaski Park Monument ceremony every year. He was a man who did it and did it under the radar for the most part. He's not looking for photo ops. He was doing it because he believed in it, and he was a friend, and he was an asset to this community. He will be sorely missed.
Yes, he will. Yes, he will. And
So,
I'm wondering who's going to pick up the mantle of all those ceremonies that he put on, because he put on several ceremonies throughout the year. The Miller Monument, Pulaski Monument. I mean, there was always, the Polish War Monument on Plymouth Avenue. He did a lot of those, and he did them
mhm.
regularly. He was also very active in the Polish community.
Yep.
So it made for an interesting time. And I saw Richard regularly. Whenever there was a computer problem, I get a phone call. And Steve Reese also got phone calls, our current producer. And we had, spending time with Richard, we had a lot of great political talks. And Richard attempted to run for city council a couple of times. But again, the South End wasn't willing to place him in office, and I think they made a big mistake when they did that.
Yeah, they did. You know why? Because he always flew under the radar. He wasn't a,
Yep.
he wasn't a political opportunist like we see so many of these people that are jumping on. And before we bring on Nelson, let's just lead with this. Um, I'm looking at the city council meetings resolutions from yesterday. I just want to comment on a few of these before we get in. Well, because this kind of segues into Nelson's presentation, and also I will give you at the end of Nelson's, I will give you an update on the healthcare numbers, which is staggering. Resolutions. I've got like half of it, but we like to show you that we're not making this stuff up. So it's not us. I'm reading this right off of paper. Committee on Finance convene with the administration and representatives from the Department of Emergency Medical Services, the Community Development Agency, and Homeless and Substance Use Outreach Services to discuss funding and contracting of a mental health clinician. Another job. Let me read that again, of how many people are going to figure out if they need somebody else. Talk about waste of money. Okay. The Department of Emergency Medical Services, the Community Development Agency, and the Homeless and Substance Use Disorder Outreach Services. I mean, just that name alone. Now they want somebody else, another job. There's your tax dollars at work. Okay, that's number one. I had to hit. Okay, the second one is the Committee on Finance convene with the administration to discuss strategies on how to decrease the number of homeless encampments within our city. Why now? Paul took their tents away. He ignored them for 3.5 years. Why now, Council? Except for Michelle Dion, who's actually one of the few people who advocate for the people at every meeting. Why do you all have amnesia until in the next election year? Now, all of a sudden, you realize that we've got too many homeless encampments. And then the next one really gets me, especially after what our illustrious South End state representative said about we've done enough for housing, because he doesn't know the difference between public housing and workforce. And it's pointless. Okay, the next one. The Committee of Finance convened with the administration to discuss increased rental costs within the city. Really? You're acknowledging it now, Council? All you rubber stamp, rubberhead bobbleheads that spent all the opera money on everything except rent, except affordable housing, and you let the mayor spend it on everything except affordable housing? And now they're trying to dismiss it. Oh, we've done enough. Oh, let the surrounding communities also. You read these things, they make you sick. It makes me nauseous to read this stuff, because it's like all this stuff, another job, dealing with problems we've had for the 4 years he's been in office, and the 4 years most of them have been in office, shows that this is why most of them, if not all of them except for Michelle, do not deserve a second term. So that I just had to get that out, because I'm going to tell you, reading this just pissed me off. I'm sorry. They're pretending they care again. Don't fall for it, voter. Do not fall for it. When they ask you for the vote, ask them, where have you been?
Right.
Where have you been?
Well,
for the last 4 years.
Last night, I've got to give them credit. Okay, Michelle Dion and Leo Pelletier were not there yesterday. I gave Michelle Dion a call. She hasn't returned my phone call because a citizens input speaker said that she was upset that only 4 city councilors or 3 city councilors had returned her phone calls, which I find very upsetting. But I know that Michelle usually returns all her phone calls, but I know she's been having some difficulties lately with issues. But last night they tabled the sale of the Bank Street Armory pending further investigation. So, congratulations. And I guess it was unanimous.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, another political move by them because they know the people in Fall River are not happy with what's going on with the Bank Street Armory. And what are they going to do, CJ? Let me see if I can think of something that's really kind of totally related. Wait a minute. We got thrown off the air. But we're not gone. We're suspended. But that suspension has dragged out on a simple First Amendment case. They know they denied us our First Amendment rights, and they know everything we said was legal. But what are they doing? They're conducting an investigation. And when they completed their investigation, didn't we get an email saying now they're getting an outside investigator to investigate the investigation? Right. I'm going to tell you how long that investigation is going to last till this damn election is over. That's what their objective was, to get us off the air for the election. But they failed. But this is this is the same crap now. We want all kinds of information on the Bank Street Armory, and if you put those bozos back in office, as soon as this election is over and they're back in those seats, they will do whatever Paulie Pockets wants.
That's right. And remember,
if he gets in.
Joe Good turned around and exposed the fact that the mayor threatened to withhold funding to the TV station if we weren't taken off the air. So this is definitely political retribution.
Of course it is. But with that, we've said this was great. Everybody, listen. Like I said, I'm not making this up. I'm not making this up. Go and check it. This is it. It's in their agenda.
That was last night's agenda.
That's right. Last night's agenda. Go look it up and see what it is. So with that, I think we've set the table because we're talking about giving out jobs. Like I said, how many damn people do we need to screw in a light bulb in this city? We got the entire Department of Emergency Medical Services, the entire Community Development Agency, and the Homeless and Substance Use Disorder Outreach Service, whatever that is. That name's like so long. I got no idea how many people we got involved in that one and who got a nice job from Paulie. Now we want another job. Let's add another job. I wonder whose vote he's looking for and whose family's vote he's looking for now. This is outrageous. If you people pay attention, follow the money and follow the patronage jobs. So
no question about it. No question about it.
With that, I rest my case. Are we ready to bring Nelson in?
We are ready.
All right.
Hello, Nelson. Welcome.
Hello.
Look at him. He's all dressed up too.
Yes. When you're in front of the people, you have to dress appropriately because today is a very important show. And just to piggyback off of how you guys started, they only see the homeless encampment during election season. And you're right, Chip. They want to try to do something now. Well, guess what? It's too late. The train's coming. And do you want to know what's going to happen? Rents are now have doubled since 2021, according to the United States Census. And our residents are on the verge of being displaced and replaced because they want Fall River to pay Boston type rent. And we all know once the rents hit $3,000 for a studio down here. Do the math. 3 times the rent. That's 9,000. Times that by 12. That's 6 figures. So you mean to tell me that they want Fall River to be where you need a 6-figure income to live in this city? That's not a success story. All the boats don't rise with that tide. All I see is our people being left behind. And they make it seem as if that the bullshit Route 79 project is for us. Even though it's located here, it's for other people. And what's even more shocking is that we spend ARPA money on a project spearheaded mostly by the state. And just to segue into another topic, I was going to say, when he discussed the rental issue, it's quite ironic that our state rep, Alan Sylvia, wants to go on the telephone and say that Fall River has done enough. Quite simply, that's an irresponsible statement, and he doesn't deserve to be a state rep for the South End. Because I remember seeing Mr. X, shout out to your comment. Yes, I do live right next to him. And it's just, I couldn't believe I heard him say that. Especially when he receives calls in his office of people complaining about the rents. And they're still trying to commingle public housing with affordable housing, even though they're two different categories, especially with workforce housing. And Carol Fiola even explained the difference, that they're not the same. And I want to say one more thing about Linda Pereira. She said last night that it had nothing to do with the developers. Well, guess what? You're wrong. Because all of them are coming in here claiming the HDIP program. And the HDIP program is a state program. And what's ironic with that program is that they're getting two tax benefits. And with those two tax benefits from the state and from the city. And with that tax program, all of the renovations that they do with these developments, as we know, you increase in value. But with that program, with that increased value, they're going to pay little to no taxes on those increases in the value, which means they're only going to pay what they need to below. And as we all know, they said they have about 2,000 properties in the pipeline. And with that program, up to 20 years, they get that benefit, which is why they are purposely putting those developments in different parts of the neighborhood in Fall River, raising the cost of living for property owners around that development, and their taxes go up, and they pay every penny on the increased property values. And yet, these developers who are coming in here are getting a free ride, 20 years. Do you want to know how many millions of dollars we're going to lose out on property taxes? How is that fair? Where's the equity? Which is why if I was on a city council, I would have been a no vote against the HDIP program, because guess what? With the HDIP program, this is what it stands for. How developers increase profits. That's what it is. And last night was a disgrace. The Bank Street Armory, that's our building, and we need to do something right with that building, not just pawn it off. That building has history, and if we sell that building off, it's a disrespect not only to this community, but to everybody who built that building back in the day before we all came in onto this earth. What a disgrace that was. If that building gets pawned off, it will be a huge disrespect to our community, and we just cannot pawn off our history.
Well, I gotta stop you there for a second, Nelson. That HDIP program, and I laid into the governor last week about the HDIP program and how it's been so bastardized at Fall River.
Yeah.
They were supposed to designate in Fall River an area for HDIP housing, okay? But what Fall River did, what this city council did, what Sean Kadim did, what Leo Pelletier did, what Brian Kilby did, what Pamela Liberté LeBeau did, what Linda Pereira did, what Laura Washington has done, what Trot Lee did when he was a city councilor. They approved the expansion of the zones, or worse, they created separate zones. So much so that Linda Pereira actually asked, is this going to be classified as spot zoning? Because she knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that this was wrong, and that's why she asked it.
And
But
CJ,
but they created it.
and CJ, I was want to say real quick on this topic. Ken Fiola went before the planning board last year, and a planning board member asked him point blank, "What is this going to do for people who are on Section 8 mobile vouchers?" And he said, given the rents that they're going to be charging in these units, not even they could get in there. So basically, this city right now is trying to provide a housing stock that is not meeting the needs of this community. And as a result, they're getting a free ride by not paying the taxes on the increased property values. And you can go to the state website and it's in the law, verbatim. But they didn't want to talk about that in the city council.
No, they don't.
They didn't want to talk about that benefit. They just want to say, well, this is great for the community. But you know what? It's having an effect in our different parts of the neighborhoods, and our property owners are being squeezed and being forced out. And what's even more shocking and more sad is that people who have paid off their properties are on the verge of being forced out because the government doesn't want to decrease its spending. Okay, big government's getting more expensive. When you look at Paul Coogan's budget that passed, which barely had any discussion, the total operating budget was over $400 million. So we are almost $500 million for an operating budget. And yet, where's the relief? Where is the relief for the people that need it? $70 million and no relief has came to the people. And especially when Paul says, well, I gave it to Catholic Social Service, about $8 million. Well, guess what? As we all know, that money, that program hinged on the landlords of accepting that money, because as we all know, the COVID eviction restrictions were being lifted. Okay? See, you don't pawn off the responsibility. You don't delegate your responsibility onto others. You tackle that issue head on, which is why New Bedford's doing it, May Mitchell and others. But here in Fall River, he wants to pawn things off. He wants to be, he's a hands-off mayor. And he's so bad, I was going to say, is that he has financially mismanaged the city's finances.
Okay, let me get a word in.
Yes.
Please. Okay, we all know this. This is history. We all know what's happened. And it's disgusting. However, what you have to do here now is focus the voters' attention on why this happened.
Yep.
It happens because our mayor doesn't give a shit. We know that. Paul came in here for a paycheck and to be a puppet and to let these people come in. Where's the council? Linda Pereira says that the developers have nothing to do with it. She must have flunked economics. Go ask somebody who couldn't sell their 3-decker for $280 and then sold it for a $500,000 when these people came in and moved out of the city with the money they made. Ask people of what happens when you have a capitalistic society and you begin to see escalations in rents. If you're getting it, and some landlords are going to raise their rent. We've seen the impact of this. That was a ridiculous statement. It was
Absolutely.
A cover statement because, number one, we all know what happened. I mean, all you got to do is look at the stats. Go back to the U.S. Census Bureau a few years ago and look at the rents in Fall River, and they were in line with the community's income levels. Now, all of a sudden, these developers come in and the rents double and they're still going up, but it's got nothing to do with them. Give me a break, Linda. You know that's not true. You've got property. And you know how much you could get for that property now versus what you could get 4 years ago. You know, this is all BS and it's all about the council. We have to focus on where the responsibilities. You can't ignore things. You can't let this stuff happen. You can't be talking about homelessness and high rents 3 years after it starts.
Absolutely.
Where the hell have you been? Where the hell have you been? Walking around down in the Duval corridor, watching the big trucks dig it up, and pretending you're in Valhalla? You're not. You know what happens to a city of Fall River that goes along this path? We do not become a Newton like they promised. We become a Detroit. That's what we become. A city where they couldn't sell a house for $1. And that's a fact. These people are they're crooked and they lie. And the city council has not done its job with a few exceptions. And there are a few councilors that have had the right position on a few things. But there's only one councilor who's been consistently on the side of the people. And we know who that is. Michelle Dion.
Yep.
And this is outrageous. This rent thing is going to destroy the people of Fall River. It's everything that's in that they're looking at now that they haven't looked at for 3 years. Homelessness, high rents. They didn't do a damn thing until an election year. Now they're all going to say that. How about all the way they blew the opera money? And with that, let's focus on why this happened. Our government let it happen. Our city council let it happen. And as you said, there wasn't even a discussion on this budget.
Zero.
And now, with that being said, I think everybody knows where we're at with this thing, and nobody's happy, and we can do a whole nother 10 shows on this stuff. And we've got numbers. This isn't hyperbole like they deal in. That segues into what do they really do with their money? Let alone give out jobs and blow money. How about the unseen money, the money they buried? And I will go over those numbers again after you're done with your presentation, because I have the final numbers for the last 4 fiscal years, and they are staggering.
I bet.
And I sent a letter to the city council, a citizen's input, with those numbers. They weren't complete. We were only 6 months into this fiscal year, last fiscal year. But even they were big. And I said, ask the question, where was this money spent? Where is it? They didn't even read it. Fortunately, last night, CJ forced them to read his. but the reality is that, listen, they don't want to hear it. Except now it's an election year. They're going to come up with all these resolutions. And like I said, you ask them the simple question, where have you been for the last 3.5 years, or better than 3.5 years? So now I know you've got a very good presentation, because I looked it over last night. It's extremely, extremely well put together. So Nelson, why don't you share some of these numbers with our viewers?
So I'm gonna set the table first. As we all know, the administration talked about the finances, and they talked about Diamond, and they talked about Durfee. And when he brought up the Durfee debt exclusion, the full number, as it was shown from her laptop, and that's the image I got, was from her laptop. They said that the number was 5.2 million. But you see, back in February 6th of 2018, Paul Coogan, you attended that meeting. It was a committee on finance. And Mary Sahadi put the presentation, the preliminary numbers. Okay, the preliminary numbers, and in that slide, okay, they made it a real point that the number that we're gonna see on the 8th year, and that was the agreement, the first 7 years. On the 8th year, you're gonna see $2,455,662 dollars. Plus $3,601,400. Add those together, it's a little over $6 million. So does that sound like $5.2 million? Absolutely not. The numbers that the administration gave me that I had to appeal for, because he went almost 90 days, if he is given another term And look, Michelle Dion has put the, when she asked that question, she said, look, there's a big, huge increase there. And the CFO said that, the $5.2 million, okay, he has increased that number by $1.6 million. He wants this line item to be a piggy bank. And tonight at 5:30, Eric B. Media Studios, everything I'm talking about here will be put into a presentation for full public disclosure. It's staggering that, he was there, and to prove that he was there you go, Paulie, right there, timestamped. You know what the real number is. You're a liar and a thief, and you've been caught with your hand in the cookie jar. You have single-handedly financially mismanaged this city, and now you want the people to pay $1.6 million more because the numbers that I have that came out, okay, before the election of 2018, and I have it right here, is that, you see, these are the real numbers. And just bear with me, guys. This was the chart that came out before the election. You see that highlighted area right there? Over here? Those are the first 7 years. Those numbers don't even go past $3.6 million. It's 3.6. If you want to round it off for more clarity, 3,603,000 to round it off. We're nowhere near 5.2. And when you add it up, we're in the 6 millions. So, and when you look at his numbers, he says that the bill is 4.5, but he puts in 5.2. So when you subtract those two numbers, based on his numbers, we're left with $700,000. So where are you going to spend that money at? The fact, and what's even more crazy is that he said that the total number for the project itself, for the construction, was about $123 million or so. And yet, on the same day back in 2018, Mary Zahaya said that the project cost $181 million. A huge discrepancy in the numbers that he gave. Sorry, Paulie. You left breadcrumbs in these numbers. You took it upon yourself to play with these numbers. And you want to know how they play with these numbers? Is that when you look at, these, when I show those, the numbers that, so he decreased the debt exclusion numbers by $2 million, increased the $2 million mark by $500,000 more. And everyone will see that tonight. He already played with it. And then I sent in a public records request as to how they came up with the 5.2. And he has not came with no answer. This man he has lost his way. He doesn't care. And for somebody who wants to knowingly reach into the pockets to make people pay more, it's staggering. And also with the property taxes, and this is where this came from her laptop, the current CFO. He's using 5.2 as the number to calculate the property taxes. But again, he knowingly misappropriated that number. It's supposed to be $3.6 million. So that leaves a lot more questions. The fact of the matter is he doesn't care. And quite frankly, he promised the city to run for 2 terms. And now he wants a 3rd term. He wants a $250,000 pay raise. Why? We cannot afford another 2 years with this current administration because he is too expensive. Because he thinks high property taxes. He doesn't want to reduce taxes. He has not given the $6 million back to the people like he promised. He thinks high rents are good for the community long term. He's out of touch with himself. He's out of touch with reality. And for somebody to knowingly steal money out of the pockets like this, he should resign immediately. Immediately, because you cannot knowingly misappropriate a line item like this, which brings into question the entire budget. And Chip, like you said, with the healthcare money, I think it was like $16 million with the numbers that you showed previously, and wanted to have read in the city council. Even those numbers are staggering. So much wasteful spending, and at a cost, because of his financial mismanagement. You want people to pay more for Durfee when the deal was 3.6 for 7 years, and then you top it off with Diamond, which is in this presentation. I have it in here that, based on what was said, it was going to be $69 per 100,000 in value, which in the budget would be $6.5 million that the city council has to find in the budget. So between that, look, the reason why I went out of my way to get the truth out is because Durfee and Diamond, Durfee is a 30-year bond. And by getting the proper number in the budget provides the checks and balances. And my question to the city council is this: how do you feel about being lied to? Because Councilor Washington said, well, I could just go up there and he'll give me whatever I need, and the checks and balances are right there. Well, he lied to you, but you don't care because you're at the hip with him. Okay? She has done nothing to provide any relief to the taxpayers, and their votes speak for themselves. That man lied. He attended that meeting back in 2018 in February before the election, and the numbers that I have, I'm going to show tonight, came out before the election. Okay? You cannot just take numbers out of the sky because you want extra money. That's stealing, Paul, and you got caught.
Great presentation. I know you did the numbers. I hope everybody watches tonight, and we will post it when you want to give it to us. We will post the numbers, but I've got a little something here. Wait a minute. Here we go. Just in case you think I'm making this up. See?
There you go. There's the confirmation.
This was posted by Kevin Agia on October 12, 2021. There's been a lot of talk about a debt exclusion this election. This chart was used before the debt exclusion vote for the new Durfee House bill. The voters were told the total additional tax amount was $3.6 million for 7 years starting in 2023. Okay? I didn't make this one up either. Just like I didn't make up the garbage that they made resolutions about. But I have to disagree. I have to commend you on the great work you did and your diligence in getting these numbers. But I have to disagree with you. Paul has not lost his way. He is not out of touch with reality. Paul Coogan was not elected as our puppet mayor, except to do exactly what's happening, allowing the big money people who he has said blatantly, I got to talk to my banker friends. I got to talk to my lawyer friends. I got to talk to my rich friends. He doesn't care. He never did care. He's doing exactly what he was elected to do. And now they want him to get one more term. And I'm going to tell you why. This city is going to crash and burn. When we get Diamond, we have Durfee, and then we lose this APA money that he's misappropriated. And then he'll be gone. He gets another term. They don't care. They said, Paulie, you're gonna make almost $250,000 extra to put in the piggy bank because you can live on your pension. Get another term. We keep raping and pillaging the city of Fall River. And then you just go sell your little Bobby townhouse because we know you're not staying in that thing. You're not going to live in Fall River when you moved out as soon as you retired. You only moved back in to dip your hand in the pockets of the people of Fall River. And then you can ride off into the sunset and laugh at the people of Fall River when we're in receivership, and then we can have our next anointed candidate blame you. This was all Paul Coogan's fault. He was an inept, incompetent mayor. He overspent. He did this. He did that. But you know what the problem is? You know what the problem is? I have not seen a politician in the last decade ever have the courage to say, when I get in office, I'm going to demand a full forensic audit. That's like their hair bursts into flames. Why? Because some of their people might be exposed as doing some not appropriate spending of money. I got to research forensic audits. No, you don't. A forensic audit's an audit. The only difference is a forensic audit also not only just makes sure the numbers are right, they make sure that it was appropriately and legally spent. Because I did a forensic audit. I didn't do it physically, but I commissioned a forensic audit of the healthcare plan with Ernst & Young, one of the biggest accounting firms in the country. And that thing revealed things that they should have put the entire financial team of Fall River at the time in jail. They should have put them in jail. But you know what they did? Nothing. They gave us free Blue Cross for 3 months and a premium reduction for the rest of the year to pay us back the money they mishandled and misappropriated and hid and said, oh, we didn't know it was your money, even though there's a statute that says it has to be. But that's what happens. There's no accountability. And I haven't seen anybody with the courage, council or mayoral candidate, that's got the cojones to say, when I become the mayor, I'm going to run a full forensic audit because I want to know exactly, not only exactly how much money we have, but exactly how and if it was misspent so I can eliminate this thing. And when that happens, I think the sun might rise in the west and set in the east. But that's the problem. The problem is that this is outrageous. They've screwed the people of Fall River. They're going to turn Fall River into Detroit, not Newton. And all these rich people that told you don't like it here, move out. Well, you know what they'll have? They'll have Detroit. You know how many people that were rich had to move out of Detroit? Yeah, because that's what's going to happen to them. But while we're on it, you're talking about money, and you mentioned it. So I'm going to segue into this, and then CJ can wrap it up. The healthcare money. I sent them a letter. I had preliminary, didn't have the full. Well, everybody, the numbers are in. The final numbers for the last 4 fiscal years are in, and I broke them down. You ready? Here we go. This is what they had extra. Ask them how much money, and I'll tell you how much money they should have and how much they spent, and see how much they got in the healthcare account. FY20, $3,028,489. FY21. This is surplus, extra money that came back to the city. $6,594,081. 21. FY22, $3,365,219. FY23, final number, drum roll, $4,577,966. That comes to a total of $17,565,755. The city's 75% of that money, because the 25% has to go to the employees because we put in 25% of the money, is $13,174,316, which averages $3,293,579 per fiscal year. Where's that money? How was it spent? Nobody knows. It disappears. It becomes, as a former city administrator or chief of staff once said, magic money. You've just exposed a whole bunch of fat cushioned money he stuck into the budget. Here's another $13 million. Another $13,174,316. Those are not my numbers. These are real numbers. Remember the city council meeting where Mary Sahadi said it was the bill was 45 million for the premium, the city's premium share, and it was actually 40. And Michelle
And then we
Dion
accepted 39.
and Michelle and then Michelle Dion questioned her, and they brought in the company that does our books, and they had the courage to tell the truth because they have to fiduciarily, and said it was 40. And like you said, CJ, they took 39. So you know something? Ask your city councilors, what have you been doing? What have you been doing for the last 3 years? CJ, you and I have been sending this crap to them from day one of the Paul Coogan administration. And the only person that ever asks a question about any of this is Michelle Dion. It's time for the people of Fall River to get rid of these people and put people in who will say, you know something, it's your money. And we're going to make sure that we know where every penny of your money is spent. There's going to be no more of this squirreling money away. You plug in the budget with ARPA money that you're not supposed to. And there should be audits on everything. Federal audits on all the ARPA money spent. Forensic audit on the entire city. That's my position. And that's why I will not vote for anybody that doesn't advocate that we figure out where the hell our money is. And now you guys can take it away.
Hey guys, I just want to say something real quick before we wrap up. I will make this quick. 2 topics. One, tomorrow there is a court case in New Bedford Superior District Court between the Herald News and the city of Fall River, because they are going to be fighting for the public records as to know what the hell happened with DCM. That's tomorrow. That's tomorrow in New Bedford, which I will be attending that one because a lot of people have been asking about that. And also, too, yesterday on Facebook, an anonymous participant, shout out to this person because they were spot on the money. This is what they posted. Quote, I think now more than ever, we need to find out what happened that night. Judge Bourgeau said, quote, the failure to disclose this information would raise questions amongst the public about why this information was being withheld, which would only serve to undermine the integrity of the law enforcement departments and those reviewing their conduct, end quote, wrote Bourgeau. We're literally months now since that decision came down from the judge. It's about time they show those records to everyone. And what I'm referring to is the Herald News article that says, back in March 21st of 2023, judge orders DA to release records in Anthony Hardin police shooting. This was back in March. This judge ordered Quinn to release those records, and we have not heard a peep out of what's going on there. That's another huge red flag, is that they're choosing, in my opinion, since we haven't seen anything, wants to ignore a judge's order to release these records into the Anthony Hardin police shooting case. We need to know what happened. Quinn, you need to show those records. You have been ordered to, and we're all waiting. People have been asking about that, DCM, the money, the secrecy, the transparency, the pending lawsuits within, as we all know, I'm pretty sure it's going to come out, with the drugs found in the desk, how many cases that's going to impact, how many people are going to be let out because of that negligence, the school side, how many lawsuits have we paid out, how many are still pending, what is the total number? Because all of this comes back to the taxpayer. Nobody knows anything. It's about time we have real full transparency. And since that man was ordered by the judge, we're waiting, Quinn. Where the hell have you been?
I find it interesting because, you know, a comment by Attorney Assad, who represents the school committee, said that the settlements or the court awards for these cases is going to come out of the school department budget. That is still city tax dollars. I don't know where this guy thinks his school department budget comes from, but it's still city tax dollars. And that's the way that is. And he needs to understand that. So I want to thank you for being here, Nelson. And remember,
My pleasure.
and we look forward to seeing your show tonight at 5:30. I want to thank you all for watching, and remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. We'll see you on Friday.